Have you ever wondered why the people closest to us don't always tell us the truth? They're not strangers, not acquaintances, but the ones who say they love us. Why do men who desire respect, who crave love, who want to be understood, often choose lies instead of honesty? It's not always because they are evil. It's not always because they want to destroy trust. The truth runs much deeper. Lies are often born from fear of being seen, fear of being rejected, fear of losing control. Think about it. When someone lies, they are not only trying to deceive you, they are also trying to protect themselves. Every lie is a shield, and behind every shield is a man who feels weak, threatened, or ashamed. But here is the problem. When lies replace truth, relationships rot from the inside out. No matter how polished the words, no matter how sweet the promises, lies always carry poison. And if you are not careful, you drink that poison slowly. You start doubting yourself. You start questioning your own worth. You start thinking, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I don't deserve more. That's how lies win. Not in the moment they are spoken, but in the silence that follows. Psychologists tell us that human beings are wired to trust first. We survive as social creatures by believing that the person in front of us is being truthful. But this instinct, this natural drive to trust, can become dangerous when you place your faith in the wrong hands. And here is the reality. Men, just like women, are capable of bending truth when it serves their fears. And so why must you learn to recognize the lies? Because if you don't, you risk building your entire life on illusions. Imagine building a house on sand. Every wall you raise will crumble when the storm comes. That's exactly what happens when a relationship is built on lies. It may stand for a while. It may look strong from the outside, but the foundation is already broken. Now listen carefully, because this is where most people make the mistake. They think if someone lies to me, it's because I wasn't enough. If someone hides the truth, maybe I drove them to it. But that's not the truth. The lie is never your fault. The lie belongs to the one who spoke it. And the moment you take responsibility for someone else's dishonesty, you hand them your power. You must remember, power in relationships doesn't come from control. It doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from clarity, from wisdom, from courage to see what is hidden behind words. That's why this message matters. Because once you understand the psychology of lies, you are no longer a victim of them. Ask yourself, do you want to be fooled or do you want to be free? Do you want a life of half-truths and excuses? Or do you want relationships built on respect and honesty? The choice is always yours. And here is the reward for staying with me until the end of this video. You will not just learn about the 6 lies men tell women. You will learn how to protect yourself from them. You will learn how to see through words and into the motives behind them. And once you master this, no one will ever be able to deceive you in the same way again. That is your power. Because the more you value truth, the less power lies have over you. The moment you decide, I will no longer settle for half-truths, you force every relationship in your life to rise to a higher standard. You stop begging for honesty and instead you demand it by the way you live. You stop chasing validation from words and instead you find strength in actions. That is where freedom lives. But make no mistake, recognizing lies requires courage. It requires you to face uncomfortable realities. It requires you to admit when someone you trusted has chosen comfort over honesty. And it requires you to rise above the desire to believe something just because it feels good. Lies will always sound sweeter than truth, but truth is what sets you free. So today, don't just listen. Decide. Decide that you will no longer be blinded by comforting words. Decide that you will value yourself enough to demand more than empty promises. Decide that from this moment forward, you will open your eyes, sharpen your mind, and guard your heart. Because the only person who suffers when you ignore lies is you. This is the beginning of a journey to expose the 6 lies men tell women. But more than that, it is a journey to reclaim your strength, to see clearly, to live powerfully, to love without being fooled. And when you reach the end of this journey, you will walk away with more than just knowledge. You will walk away with a shield no lie can break and a vision no manipulation can blind. That is the reward. Stay with me, because your freedom depends on it. Why do men lie? That's the question burning at the heart of every broken promise, every empty excuse, every word that doesn't match reality. It's not always because they want to harm. Often it's because they don't know how to face the truth themselves. A lie is not only a cover from others, it's also a cover from the self. Psychology tells us something uncomfortable. People lie most often not to others, but to themselves. They lie because they fear being judged. They lie because admitting weakness feels unbearable. They lie because they think if the truth is exposed, love will disappear. But here is the paradox. Every time a man lies to protect himself, he destroys the very thing he was trying to save. He wants respect, but dishonesty erodes it. He wants love, but falsehood suffocates it. He wants trust, but lies turn trust to dust. Think deeply about this. Lying is rarely about you. It is a mirror of his inner battles. It is a reflection of his wounds, his pride, his fears. And yet, even though the lie may not be your fault, the damage it causes becomes your burden. Because when you live in the shadow of deception, you live in confusion. Confusion about who you are. Confusion about what is real. Confusion about whether you can even trust your own instincts. That is why lies in relationships are so dangerous. They do more than bend the truth. They bend the mind. When you hear a lie enough times, you start doubting yourself instead of doubting the words. That is the trap. You stop asking, is he lying? And you start asking, am I crazy? And once your mind is captured in that prison, the liar no longer has to work hard. You will silence yourself. This is how manipulation thrives. Not through the power of the liar, but through the weakness created in the one who believes. That's why you must train yourself to see through the mask. Because once you see it, once you recognize the pattern, the power shifts back to you. Now here's the deeper truth. Men often lie because of identity. From a young age, boys are taught to appear strong. Don't cry, don't show weakness, don't admit fear. So they grow up learning that honesty about struggle is dangerous. They begin to think vulnerability equals failure. So instead of saying, I'm scared, they say, I'm fine. Instead of admitting, I don't know what to do, they insist, I've got it under control. Instead of confessing mistakes, they build walls of excuses. This conditioning runs deep. And yet, no matter how deeply ingrained it is, lies still leave scars, because strength is not proven by denial. Strength is proven by courage. The courage to face truth, the courage to admit failure, the courage to be seen without masks. But here is where the choice returns to you. You cannot control whether a man lies, but you can control whether you believe it. You can control whether you give your trust cheaply or whether you demand proof through action. Words may deceive, but patterns do not. Time always reveals what lips try to hide. Understand this. A lie always comes from a place of fear. Fear of losing love, fear of losing control, fear of losing image. But fear is not love. Fear is not respect. And if fear is the root of his actions, the fruit will always be bitterness. You deserve more than that. You deserve relationships where words match reality, where promises are not chains but commitments that breathe life, where truth is not hidden but shared even when it hurts. That's why knowledge is power. When you understand the psychology of lies, you stop taking them personally. You stop carrying shame that doesn't belong to you. Or you start seeing dishonesty for what it is, a reflection of weakness, not a reflection of your worth. And once you see this clearly, something shifts inside of you. You no longer beg for honesty, you expect it. You no longer tolerate games, you rise above them. You no longer measure your value by someone's ability to tell the truth. You measure it by your own commitment to live in truth. Because here's the secret. When you refuse to be fooled, lies lose their power. When you anchor yourself in clarity, no deception can shake you. And when you honor yourself enough to demand truth, you attract relationships that rise to that standard. Never forget, lies may protect someone's pride, but they destroy connection. And connection is the soul of every relationship. Without truth, there is no trust. Without trust, there is no love. So guard your heart, sharpen your vision, and remember, lies are not signs of your weakness, but signs of another's fear. And once you understand that, you stop living as a victim of lies, and you begin living as a master of truth. One of the most common lies you will ever hear in a relationship comes disguised in two small words, I'm fine. It sounds harmless, it sounds simple, but beneath those words lies a storm. Because rarely does I'm fine actually mean peace. More often it means pain hiding behind a mask. Why does this lie appear so often? Because men are taught to believe that showing emotions is weakness. They are conditioned to think that if they admit sadness, fear, or frustration, they will lose respect. So instead of opening up, they close off. Instead of sharing the truth, they bury it. And instead of saying what they feel, they smile and whisper, I'm fine. But here's the danger. When truth is buried, it does not disappear. Unspoken feelings do not vanish, they grow. They grow into distance, they grow into anger, they grow into silence so heavy that it suffocates the bond between two people. This is why "I'm fine" can become one of the deadliest lies in any relationship. It's not just a denial of emotions, it's a denial of intimacy itself. Think about it. Intimacy is not built through perfection, it's built through honesty. It's built when two people can look at each other and say, "This is how I feel. This is what I fear. This is what I need." Or when one side refuses to reveal those truths, the relationship becomes unbalanced. One partner lives in reality, the other hides behind illusion. And a bond built on illusion cannot last. Psychology explains this clearly. Emotional suppression always comes at a cost. When a man repeatedly says "I'm fine" while carrying pain, his nervous system still reacts to the stress. The body keeps the score. Stress builds, resentment grows, disconnection deepens, and eventually the weight of everything unsaid explodes in anger or collapses in withdrawal. But notice the tragedy here. Most of the time, the man who says "I'm fine" is not trying to deceive you to hurt you. He is trying to protect himself from judgment. He fears that if he reveals his real emotions, he will be seen as weak, needy, or unworthy of love. So he hides. He covers the wound with words, hoping no one notices the bleeding. Yet hiding never heals. The wound ignored always becomes worse. And for the woman who hears "I'm fine" again and again, confusion begins to grow. She feels the distance. She senses something is wrong. But when she asks, she is met with a wall of denial. Over time, she may even begin to doubt her intuition, believing she's imagining the distance. That is the silent power of this lie. It not only hides the truth, but it also makes the other person question their own reality. So how do you deal with this lie? First, by understanding that it is not about you. It's about fear. When a man says "I'm fine," he is telling you more about his relationship with himself than his relationship with you. He is admitting without words that he has not yet learned the courage of vulnerability. He is saying without saying that he does not trust himself to be fully seen. Second, by refusing to accept the surface answer. This doesn't mean pushing or forcing, but it means paying attention to actions more than words. If his behavior shows stress, anger, or sadness, don't let two words convince you that everything is perfect. See reality as it is, not as it is spoken. And most importantly, protect your own mind. Or do not let "I'm fine" gaslight you into ignoring your intuition. You feel what you feel for a reason. If you sense distance, it is real. If you sense something is hidden, it probably is. Your intuition is a compass. Trust it. Here is the greater lesson. True strength is never in denial. It takes no courage to hide pain. Anyone can say "I'm fine," but it takes real power to admit, "I'm struggling, but I will face it." That is the mark of maturity. That is the seed of trust. And if someone cannot reach that place, you must decide how much of yourself you are willing to give to a mask. Remember this, every time you accept a lie, you teach the other person that dishonesty is enough. But every time you stand firm in truth, you raise the standard for the relationship. Do not lower yourself to meet a lie. Demand the courage of honesty. Because relationships built on honesty may be messy at times, but they are real, and only what is real can last. So the next time you hear "I'm fine," listen carefully. Not just to the words, but to the silence around them. Listen to the tone, the body language, the energy. Because in that silence lives the truth that words are too afraid to speak. And once you learn to see through that, you will never again be blinded by the lie of "I'm fine." You will walk with wisdom, clarity, and the strength to demand a love that hides nothing. The second lie may sound even colder than the first. It comes in the form of 3 words, "I don't care." At first, it seems final, as if feelings are absent, as if emotions have no place. But the truth is far more complex. Most of the time, "I don't care" does not mean indifference. It means fear of exposure. Think about it. Human beings are wired to care. To care is to be human. To care is to connect, to attach, to desire something deeply. So when someone says "I don't care," they are not rejecting the world. They are rejecting the risk of showing how much something truly matters. This lie is born from vulnerability. When a man says "I don't care," he often means the opposite. He cares so much that admitting it feels dangerous, because if he reveals how deeply he feels, he risks rejection. He risks judgment. He risks being seen as weak. So he does what feels safer. He hides behind the mask of indifference, but Here is the tragedy. Pretending not to care slowly kills the very bond he is trying to protect. Because relationships grow through openness. They grow when both sides reveal what matters to them. They grow when love is expressed without hesitation. When one side hides behind "I don't care," the relationship begins to starve. It starves of affection. It starves of depth. It starves of the emotional connection that makes love alive. Psychology explains that suppression of care often stems from pride and defense mechanisms. When men feel vulnerable, their first instinct may be to deny it. Instead of saying, "I care too much and it scares me," they say, "I don't care at all." It's a shield protecting them from the terror of being hurt. But shields not only block out pain, they also block out love. And for the woman hearing those words, the impact can be devastating. To hear "I don't care" from someone you love plants seeds of doubt. You begin to wonder if you matter. You begin to question whether the connection was ever real. You begin to feel that perhaps you are investing in something one-sided. The emotional walls of one person become the emotional prison of another. But remember, this lie says more about the one speaking it than about you. When a man says "I don't care," he is not declaring truth. He is confessing fear. Fear of being rejected if he admits how much he truly does care. Fear of losing control if his emotions are laid bare. Fear of being seen in a way that makes him feel small. And yet, there is nothing small about caring. There is nothing weak about love. In fact, the greatest strength any human being can show is the courage to say, "This matters to me." Because that level of honesty creates connection deeper than words can describe. So what must you do when faced with this lie? You must refuse to let it define your worth. Do not allow "I don't care" to convince you that you are unloved or unvalued. Instead, see it for what it is, a mask built from fear, not truth. And then decide how much energy you are willing to give to someone who hides behind indifference. Here is a powerful truth. Indifference is the enemy of love. Love can survive anger. Love can survive conflict. Love can even survive mistakes. But love cannot survive apathy. When one person pretends not to care, the bond begins to suffocate. Because connection requires two open hearts, not one closed and one bleeding. This is why you must protect yourself. You must train your eyes to see beyond words, to notice the gap between what is said and what is shown, because actions rarely lie. If he says "I don't care" but still shows up, still lingers, still reacts, then the words are a mask, not the truth. But if he speaks those words and lives them out, you must face reality with courage. You cannot force someone to care openly. You cannot drag honesty out of a closed heart. All you can do is honor yourself enough to walk in truth. Remember this always. Your value is not defined by another person's ability to admit their feelings. Your worth is not diminished by their denial. Whether someone confesses love or hides behind indifference, you remain whole. You remain worthy of honesty, worthy of care, worthy of a love that speaks boldly instead of trembling in fear. So do not let "I don't care" silence your spirit. Do not let it weaken your belief in love or in yourself. See it clearly for what it is. A wall of fear, not a statement of truth. And once you see it, you are free. You're free to choose honesty over games. Free to demand openness instead of indifference. Free to walk away from those who cannot stand in the light of truth. Because love without honesty is not love. It is performance. And you were not made to live in a performance. You were made to live in truth. Few lies cut as deeply as the words "you're overreacting." Because this is not just a denial of truth. It is a denial of your reality. It is an attempt to silence your voice, to make you question your own emotions, to convince you that what you feel does not matter. On the surface, it sounds simple, maybe even harmless. But underneath, this lie is one of the most dangerous tools in relationships because it twists perception. It takes real pain, real disappointment, real emotion, and labels it as excessive, irrational, or invalid. Why does this lie exist? Because responsibility is heavy. When a man feels cornered by truth, when he feels confronted by his actions, it is easier to deflect than to reflect. Instead of admitting fault, he shifts the spotlight. Instead of addressing your feelings, he questions them. And in that moment, the focus moves away from his behavior and onto your reaction. This is not by accident. Psychology calls it gaslighting, a tactic where one person manipulates another into doubting their own memory, their own judgment, their own sanity. It is one of the most powerful forms of emotional control Because once you start doubting yourself, you no longer need to be silenced. You silence yourself. Think of the damage this lie creates. You express your pain. You reveal your feelings. Instead of being met with compassion, you are told you are too sensitive, too dramatic, or too much. Slowly, you begin to internalize those labels. You start questioning, maybe I am too emotional. Maybe I shouldn't feel this strongly. Maybe I'm broken. And that is exactly how this lie steals your power. But hear this truth, your emotions are never wrong. They may not always be perfectly expressed, but they are always real. They are signals, messages from the heart that something matters, something hurts, something needs attention. To be told you're overreacting is to be told to ignore your own inner compass. And once you ignore it, you lose direction. Understand this. Healthy relationships are built on validation, not dismissal. Validation does not mean agreement with every feeling, but it means acknowledging that feelings exist and they matter. When someone refuses to validate you and instead labels your response as overreacting, they are choosing control over connection, because connection requires empathy. Control requires dismissal. So what do you do when faced with this lie? First, recognize it. Awareness is the greatest defense. The moment those words are spoken, pause and remind yourself, my feelings are valid. My reaction is a reflection of something real. Do not fall into the trap of questioning your own sanity. Second, stand firm in your truth. Do not shout. Do not beg. Do not let your worth hang on their approval. Instead, speak with clarity. This matters to me. This is real. And dismissing it will not make it disappear, because emotions ignored always return stronger. They do not fade because someone labels them excessive. They intensify until they are acknowledged. And third, evaluate the pattern. Everyone slips into defensiveness at times. But when your overreacting becomes a repeated weapon, it is no longer about one moment. It is about control. And control has no place in a relationship built on love. Remember, you were not made to beg for the right to feel. You were not made to carry the burden of silence just to keep peace. Peace built on suppression is not peace. It is bondage. True peace comes from honesty, from being able to express pain without fear of being shamed for it. Do not let this lie shrink you. Do not let it make you smaller, quieter, less alive. Your emotions are not flaws. They are proof that you care, proof that you love, proof that you are human. The very depth of your feelings is what makes you capable of real connection. Never apologize for that, because here is the truth. People who fear deep emotions often mock them. They laugh at passion because they are uncomfortable with intensity. But those who are capable of true love will never shame you for feeling. They will stand with you in your fire, not tell you to put it out. So the next time someone says you're overreacting, take a breath, see it clearly, understand what is happening, and remind yourself that you do not need permission to feel. Your emotions are your guide, your compass, your proof of being alive. And no one, not even someone you love, has the right to take that away. The lie of your overreacting is meant to silence, but the truth will set you free. Your voice matters, your feelings matter, and your reality matters. And once you accept that fully, you will never again allow this lie to shrink the power of your soul. Few promises carry as much weight as the words, I'll change. They sound hopeful. They sound sincere. They sound like redemption. In the heat of conflict, in the fear of loss, these words become a lifeline. But too often they are not a bridge to transformation. They are a trap to keep you waiting. Why is this lie so powerful? Because every human being wants to believe in change. We want to believe that love has the power to heal. Or we want to believe that if someone truly cares, they will rise above their flaws. And sometimes change is possible. But here is the hard truth. Real change is rare without deep, consistent effort. Words alone cannot rewrite patterns. Promises cannot erase habits. When someone says, I'll change, it often comes from fear. Fear of losing you. Fear of facing consequences. In that moment, the words are not about growth. They are about survival. It is an attempt to hold on, to reset the balance without paying the price of true transformation. Psychology teaches us that behavior is not changed by intention. It is changed by repetition, discipline, and accountability. A man may say, I'll change with tears in his eyes, and he may even believe it in that moment. But unless he commits to the work, the patterns will return. And when they return, the cycle begins again. Mistake, apology, promise, disappointment. A loop that steals years of life and drains the soul of hope. Think about the damage this creates. Every time I'll change is spoken without action, trust erodes. The words lose power, but the heart still clings to them, hoping this time will be different. You begin to wait for a version of him that never arrives. You begin to sacrifice your peace for the dream of potential. You begin to live not in reality but in hope, a hope that slowly turns into despair. Here is the truth. Real change is not spoken, it is lived. It is not a single decision, but a daily discipline. It is not proven by promises, but by consistency. When someone truly changes, you don't need to be convinced. You see it, you feel it, you experience it, because real transformation is visible. So why do so many women believe this lie? Because the heart is generous, because love sees the best in others, because hope whispers louder than doubt, and because the fear of letting go feels heavier than the pain of holding on. But you must remember, your life cannot be built on someone else's potential. It can only be built on what they are choosing to live out right now. Do not be fooled by emotional promises made in desperate moments. Desperation can create temporary conviction, but it rarely creates lasting change. Lasting change requires responsibility. It requires sacrifice. It requires humility. It requires a man to look at himself honestly and say, "This is who I have been, but it is not who I will remain," and then prove it. Day after day, action after action. Protect yourself by remembering this principle. Patterns are more honest than words. If the pattern repeats, the promise was empty. If the behavior remains the same, the declaration meant nothing. Do not let the warmth of words blind you to the coldness of reality. Here is where strength is demanded of you. It is not easy to walk away from someone you love when they promise to change. It is not easy to look beyond the hope in their eyes and see the truth in their actions. But you must value yourself enough to recognize when promises have become chains that keep you waiting, chains that keep you silent, chains that keep you from the life you deserve. Love is not meant to keep you trapped in cycles of disappointment. Love is meant to lift you, to heal you, to inspire you. And any relationship built on endless promises without progress is not love. It is illusion. Remember this, a person who truly values you will not just promise to change, they will do the hard work to change. They will not only apologize, they will adjust. They will not only speak, they will show. Because when love is real, growth becomes a priority. So the next time you hear "I'll change," pause. Look not at the words, but at the evidence. Ask yourself, has the pattern shifted, or is this another circle back to the beginning? Because your time is precious and your heart is priceless. Do not waste them waiting for someone who only changes in words. You deserve more than empty promises. You deserve truth. You deserve consistency. You deserve love that grows, not excuses that repeat. And once you hold to that standard, you will never again be trapped by the lie of "I'll change." Another powerful lie often whispered in relationships is this one: "I'm different from other men." At first, it sounds flattering. It sounds comforting. It sounds like safety. Those words make you feel like you've discovered someone rare, someone who rises above the rest, someone who will never hurt you the way others have. But pause for a moment and think carefully. Why must a man declare he is different instead of simply showing it? Why must he announce his uniqueness before time has revealed it? Often these words are not a declaration of truth, but a strategy of persuasion. They are spoken not to reveal character, but to gain trust quickly. Psychology explains this as impression management. When someone wants to be accepted, they paint a picture of themselves that looks better than reality. Or instead of waiting for actions to prove who they are, they use words to shape your perception. And because every human heart longs for connection, we want to believe those words. We want to believe we've finally found someone who stands apart. But here lies the danger. The louder someone insists I'm different, the more you must pay attention to whether their actions align, because real difference never needs to be announced. It is revealed over time. It is visible in choices, in patterns, in the way they handle conflict, in the way they treat you when no one is watching. Think about it. Trust is not built through claims. It is built through consistency. A man may say he is not like the rest, but if he repeats the same patterns of dishonesty, disrespect, or neglect, then the words were only decoration. And decoration is not foundation. This lie works because it plays on past pain. If you have been hurt before, if you have faced betrayal, if you have been told empty promises. Your heart longs to hear that this time will be different. So when someone says, I'm different from other men, it speaks directly to your wound. It gives you the comfort of hope before reality has been tested. But comfort without truth is dangerous. It blinds you to red flags. It makes you ignore warning signs. It convinces you to trust faster than wisdom allows. Understand this. True uniqueness is not spoken. It is lived. It does not demand your belief. It earns it. It does not rush you into trust. It gives you time to see. If a man is truly different, you won't need to be told. You will know. His respect, his consistency, his honesty, his accountability will reveal it more clearly than any words could. So, how do you protect yourself from this lie? By slowing down, by observing, not just listening, by reminding yourself that trust is not something to be given instantly. It is something to be built brick by brick. Do not allow declarations to replace demonstration, because anyone can speak about being different, but only a man of integrity can live it. Here's the truth. People reveal themselves over time. Words may shine in the beginning, but patterns are the ultimate proof. If you want to know whether someone is truly different, watch how they act when it costs them something. Do they keep promises when it is inconvenient? Do they remain loyal when temptation arises? Do they take responsibility when mistakes are made? These are the signs of difference, not sweet words whispered early to gain trust. And here is something you must hold firmly. You do not need to be convinced that someone is worthy of love. When love is real, it feels steady. When respect is genuine, it feels consistent. When honesty is present, it feels clear. If you are constantly being told I'm different, but constantly feeling doubt, then the words are working against the reality. Do not settle for declarations that cannot be proven. Do not let your longing for something real blind you to the absence of evidence. Because the truth is, you are worthy of love that is genuine, not love that is advertised. And genuine love does not need marketing. It reveals itself in every action, every choice, every day. Remember this always. The man who is truly different will never have to convince you. He will let his actions speak so loudly that his words become unnecessary. He will not rush your trust. He will earn it. He will not compare himself to others. He will let his integrity set him apart. And you will know, not because he told you, but because you can see it with your own eyes and feel it with your own soul. So the next time you hear I'm different from other men, don't be blinded by the comfort of the claim. Instead, step back. Watch. Listen. Wait. Because the truth will always reveal itself. And when you value truth above words, you will never again fall for this lie. One of the most dangerous lies a man can tell is this: I don't need help. On the surface, it might sound like strength. It might sound like independence, confidence, or control. But behind those words often hides pride, denial, and fear of vulnerability. Human beings are not designed to live without support. We grow through connection. We heal through honesty. We rise through guidance. Yet, when a man insists he doesn't need help, what he is really saying is that he refuses to confront his weaknesses. And a man who denies his weaknesses becomes a prisoner of them. Think about this in your own life. How many times have you seen someone repeat the same mistake over and over, simply because they refused to admit they couldn't handle it alone? How many relationships have suffered because one person chose pride over humility, silence over honesty, denial over truth? This lie does not just protect the ego of the man who speaks it, it places the weight of his struggles on the shoulders of those around him. The psychology behind this lie is clear. Many men are taught from a young age that asking for help is a sign of weakness. They are told to be tough, to never show fear, to never reveal doubt. So when life gets heavy, instead of seeking guidance, they bury their struggles. Instead of opening their hearts, they close them. Or instead of admitting, I can't do this alone, they create the illusion of strength. But illusion cannot hold up forever. It cracks. It collapses. It creates distance, frustration, and pain for the people closest to them. Because when a man says, I don't need help, he's not just lying to you, he's lying to himself. And here's the truth you must see. A relationship cannot grow when one person refuses to face reality. Partnership is built on honesty, on the willingness to admit weakness, on the courage to lean on one another. When that is missing, the relationship becomes unbalanced. One person carries the weight while the other pretends it doesn't exist. Soon resentment grows, trust breaks, love begins to wither under the pressure of denial. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot grow if you will not admit you need guidance. And you cannot build a future with someone who hides behind pride instead of embracing truth. This lie is especially destructive because it creates isolation. When a man insists he doesn't need help, he cuts himself off from growth. He refuses advice, rejects accountability, and avoids responsibility. It feels safer to him in the moment, but in reality, it makes him weaker, because true strength is not found in hiding struggle. It is found in facing it. It is found in saying, I cannot do this alone, but with support, I can overcome. If you are with someone who repeats this lie, pay close attention. Watch not just what they say, but how they live. Do they take responsibility for mistakes? Do they seek growth when challenges arise? Or do they push everything aside, pretending that denial is enough? The truth is this: no one in this world is strong enough to handle everything alone. Every great leader, every great achiever, every great man who has grown into wisdom, each one reached that point because they had mentors, support, and the humility to accept guidance. To say I don't need help is not strength. It is weakness disguised as pride. And here is what you must remember. Love cannot fix denial. You cannot convince someone to accept help if their heart is closed. You cannot carry their growth for them. What you can do is recognize the truth and decide whether you will continue to pour yourself into someone who refuses to pour into themselves. You deserve a relationship where both partners grow together. You deserve someone who has the courage to face his flaws, the humility, to seek wisdom, and the strength to admit when he cannot walk alone, because that is where trust is built, not in denial, but in honesty, not in pride, but in humility, not in the illusion of strength, but in the reality of shared growth. So never be fooled by this lie. Never mistake denial for confidence. Never confuse pride with strength. Real strength is transparent. Real strength admits weakness. Real strength accepts help when it is needed. And when you value yourself enough to see through the lie of, I don't need help, you protect your heart from the pain of being in a relationship where truth is absent. Because only in truth can love survive. Only in humility can growth happen. Only in vulnerability can intimacy exist. So hold to this standard. You are worthy of someone who is brave enough to say, I need help, and strong enough to do the work to grow. Anything less will only leave you waiting in the shadows of pride. Why do these lies exist in the first place? Why would someone risk trust, risk love, and risk connection by building their relationship on words that are not true? The answer is not as simple as calling it selfishness. The roots of these lies run deep into human psychology. And to truly protect yourself, you must understand why they are spoken. Most lies in relationships are not told out of pure malice. They are told out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of being exposed, fear of not being enough. When a man says, I don't need help, or I'm different from other men, or I would never lie to you, what he often means is, I'm afraid if you see the real me, you won't stay. The lie becomes a shield, a fragile, temporary shield meant to protect him from judgment or loss. Psychologists call this self-preservation. It is the instinct to protect the ego at all costs, even if it means sacrificing truth. And here's the paradox. The very lies meant to keep love alive are the same lies that eventually destroy it. Because no relationship can thrive in the dark. Love is built on trust, and trust cannot survive repeated deception. There is also another reason these lies appear: conditioning. From childhood, many men are taught dangerous messages. Don't cry, don't show weakness, be strong no matter what. Those lessons sound like resilience, but in reality, they often breed repression. Instead of learning to process emotions honestly, they learn to hide them. Instead of learning that vulnerability is strength, they are taught that vulnerability is shame. And when shame is present, lies become the escape. So when a man says, I don't need help, it's not just pride speaking, it's years of conditioning. When he says, I'm different from other men, it's not always arrogance, it's the desperate attempt to stand out in a world that told him his worth was never enough. The psychology of these lies is often less about tricking others and more about protecting oneself. But here is the tragedy. Lies that begin as self-protection end up becoming self-destruction. Because a man who hides behind denial, who hides behind false promises, who hides behind illusions, will never allow himself to be fully seen. And if he cannot be fully seen, he cannot be fully loved. This is why awareness is so powerful. When you recognize that lies are not random, you stop taking them personally. You see them for what they are: defense mechanisms. And once you see that, you can make choices rooted not in pain, but in clarity. There is also the factor of control. Some lies are told not just out of fear, but out of the desire to maintain control in a relationship, to avoid accountability, or to keep power. When someone says, "I never lie," while hiding the truth, they are not only trying to protect themselves, they are trying to control your perception. They are shaping the story so that they remain in charge. This is not just insecurity, this is manipulation. And here is where psychology meets reality. People lie when the short-term benefit feels greater than the long-term consequence. In the moment, avoiding conflict feels easier than facing it. In the moment, painting a false image feels safer than being vulnerable. In the moment, pride feels stronger than humility. But over time, those small lies erode everything. They turn closeness into distance, trust into suspicion, and love into resentment. So the question is not only why do they lie, the deeper question is why do we believe? And the answer is because of hope. Human beings are wired to hope. We want to believe the best in others. We want to believe in promises, in new beginnings, in redemption. And so when someone lies with confidence, with charm, with intensity, hope makes us lean in instead of stepping back. This is why understanding psychology is your shield. When you know that lies are often rooted in fear, shame, or control, you stop getting blinded by the words themselves. You start asking, do the actions align? Does reality support the promise? Does truth back up the claim? Because here's the truth. Love is not about believing words. It's about witnessing consistency. Anyone can tell you they are strong, loyal, or different, but only time, only honesty, only integrity can prove it. And the more you understand why lies are told, the less power they have over you. So take this with you. Lies may be rooted in psychology, but truth is rooted in courage. It takes courage to admit weakness. It takes courage to ask for help. It takes courage to stand in vulnerability instead of hiding behind illusions. And courage is the foundation of any relationship worth building. When you understand the psychology of lies, you gain freedom. You stop falling for the same patterns. You stop giving second chances to words that don't match actions. You stop being fooled by charm and start valuing character. And most importantly, you protect your heart, not by building walls, but by walking with wisdom. When you strip away all the illusions, all the excuses, and all the false promises, one truth remains. No relationship can survive without honesty. Lies may protect pride for a moment, but they destroy connection in the end. And connection, real, deep, unshakable connection, is what every human heart longs for. So the choice becomes clear. Do you want a relationship built on comfort, on illusions, on temporary reassurances? Or do you want one built on truth? Truth that might be uncomfortable, but truth. That sets the foundation for growth, for trust, and for love that lasts. Understand this. Truth is not just about words. It is about actions. It is about consistency. It is about integrity when no one is watching. A person can say, "I'll always be honest," but if their behavior does not match their words, their promise is empty. Words can deceive, but patterns never lie. Human psychology proves this again and again. People reveal themselves not by what they say, but by what they repeatedly do. This is why your power lies not in listening to declarations, but in watching behavior, not in clinging to excuses, but in observing patterns, not in hoping for change, but in valuing evidence of it. Building a future on truth requires courage, courage to face uncomfortable realities, courage to walk away from people who refuse to be honest, courage to say, "I deserve more," and actually live like you believe it. This is where many people struggle. They see the lies. They feel the inconsistency, but they hold on anyway. Why? Because of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of losing what feels familiar, even if it is broken. But here is the truth. Holding on to lies does not protect you from pain. It only prolongs it. Walking away from dishonesty may hurt in the short term, but it opens the door to healing, to growth, and to the kind of love that is built on something real. Think of it this way. Would you build a house on sand? Would you invest your time, your energy, your dreams into something you know cannot hold steady when storms come? Of course not. Yet many people build relationships on the sand of deception, hoping that somehow the foundation will strengthen over time. It won't. A lie cannot turn into truth. A mask cannot turn into authenticity. An illusion cannot turn into reality. The only path forward is truth. And truth, while sometimes painful, is the only soil in which love can take root and grow. This is why your standard matters. You must raise your standard high enough that lies cannot reach it. You must decide that your heart is too valuable to be manipulated, too sacred to be deceived, too strong to be fooled. Because when you set that standard, you attract a different level of love. You no longer settle for charm. You look for character. You no longer settle for promises. You wait for proof. You no longer settle for illusions. You demand reality. And here's the reward. When you choose truth over illusion, you unlock freedom. You free yourself from the endless cycle of doubt, suspicion, and disappointment. You free yourself from the exhausting task of constantly questioning what is real. You free yourself to finally experience a love that is secure, a love that is transparent, a love that does not require masks. But this begins with you. It begins with your decision to value honesty above comfort, to value integrity above charm, to value growth above pride. The future you build will always reflect the standards you accept today. So ask yourself, what do you want your future to look like? Do you want years wasted on lies that crumble the moment pressure comes? Or do you want a life built on truth, where trust is strong, where love is deep, where you can look at your partner and know without question that what you see is real? The power to decide rests with you. You are not powerless. You are not trapped. You are not destined to keep repeating cycles of deception. You can break free. You can raise your standard. You can demand honesty. And when you do, you give yourself the chance to experience something rare, something powerful, something worth every moment of waiting, a love that is real. So do not be fooled by lies. Do not lower your standard for illusions. Do not accept pride disguised as strength or promises without proof. Choose truth, even when it is difficult. Choose truth, even when it costs you comfort. Choose truth, because only truth will lead you to the future you deserve.